Thank you all for joining me once again, or for the first time, whether it be during the initial release or a few months from now when my channel is dead and buried in copyright claims. I'm kidding, of course. I'm too small for anyone to give a shit about what I do. So far, we have covered child trauma and sexual abuse. Those are two separate topics, by the way. Better known as Silent Hill and its sequel, 2. Today, we are returning to the comfortable subject of childhood trauma. The game is a direct sequel to the first release, although this is kept secret for plot purposes. My bad. Anyways, 17 years have passed since Harry Mason reluctantly decided to start all over with an entirely new baby, as though any parent would be mentally capable of doing that shit. The game begins with our protagonist, Heather Mason, running an errand for her father, Harry. Everyone with me so far? It's not Cheryl. It's not Alessa. It's Heather now. She's better. This one isn't cursed. Hopefully.
We find Heather falling asleep in the food court of a shopping mall because her McNuggets were undercooked. Or because she was trying to binge my horror narration content. Thanks for the support, Heather. I needed it. She finds herself dreaming of Silent Hill, a wondrous place filled with beauty, adventure, and lifelong friends. I'm kidding, it's a fog-ridden shithole. It's there she explores a hellish and nightmare-fueled amusement park riddled with death and misery. So Disneyland. She eventually finds herself wandering onto roller coaster tracks because she's a teenager and they almost always make poor and stupid decisions. After being struck by one of the cars, she awakes. Back inside the mall's food court, she calls her father to let him know that she'll be home soon and if he wants that Pyramid Head figurine, he can buy it his fucking self. As Heather prepares herself to leave, she encounters Douglas Cartland, a detective whom is there under the instructions of the Order, a cult from Silent Hill who are huge fans of Heather's Instagram account, boasting a whopping 320 followers. Still better than me. Heather mistakes him for a stalker. I mean, he kind of is, right? She ducks into a women's restroom to escape Douglas. Oh, hey, I got some, fuck, what do teenagers like? Oh, I've got some unironic memes and cancel culture and, oh, I got this petition. If you sign it, it'll stop misogyny, war, hunger. Tempted by the petition, regardless of what it's for, Heather stays strong against leaving the restroom. Heather opts to exit out the window in the bathroom. Resuming her leave through the mall, she begins to encounter monsters. Eventually, she encounters a barefoot woman in all black with long, flowing blonde hair, presumably looking for handouts, exchanging sexual favors for LSD, or even just a Birkenstocks employee. But more than likely all of the above. As it turns out, it's Claudia Wolf, the leader of the Order, come to inform Heather to remember me and your true self as well. And also, not to forget to stick around after speaking to a representative for a brief survey. Sometime later, Heather is finally able to leave the mall, making her way toward the subway before being stopped by Douglas. Concerned that Douglas is on Claudia's side, she leaves the man before he can recount old war stories and compare her to his granddaughter. We're just going to go ahead and skip forward a bit. And hey, look, there's Vincent. He isn't important, so we'll skip over him for now. And there we go. So Heather finally returns home to find her father. Oh my god, is that Harry Mason? What a fucking surprise! Relaxed on his favorite recliner in his comfy slippers by the warm fire. I'm kidding, he's dead. Heather follows a blood trail to the roof where she finds Claudia, listening to Pink Floyd and recounting better days, half-baked in a porta-john with different men on the last day of Woodstock. She tells Heather that she didn't kill her father, but she could if she wanted to, but she just hurt her ankle, and she was just really busy that day, and she just had to ask someone else to do it. Claudia then leaves and we're presented with a boss fight. Afterwards, Heather heads back downstairs to find Douglas recounting the time he was in Vietnam. Incensed, Heather has Douglas help her move Harry's body to his bedroom before vowing to find and kill Claudia no matter what. Douglas informs Heather that violence is never the answer and revenge won't bring her father back before offering to drive her.
Revenge won't make it any easier. Alright, car's just outside. You want to drive or should I?
During the car ride, Douglas informs Heather about Vincent's gift, Vincent being the guy I mentioned earlier, and his suggestion to look for a man named Leonard Wolf. When they arrive in Silent Hill, they decide to take refuge in Jack's Inn, a filthy motel on the seedy side of town. I'm kidding once again, the whole town is just a shit show. Heather and Douglas split up to check Brookhaven Hospital and Leonard Wolf's house, respectively. At the hospital, Heather meets a man with only good intentions and nothing sinister or creepy about him at all, Stanley Coleman. He explains that Leonard is trapped within the hospital itself. Heather then begins to remember that she is the reincarnation of Alessa Gillespie. She remembers being burned in a fire at the age of 7, which took place 24 years ago, 7 years before her birth, which was 17 years ago. Everyone all caught up? Me neither. Let's continue. Heather inevitably encounters Leonard, who, as it turns out, is Claudia's father. Leonard turns into a monster and Heather has to defeat him. Afterwards, she collects the seal of Metatron from Leonard's corpse before returning to Jackson to regroup with Douglas. Before she arrives, Vincent Smith, once again that guy I mentioned before, another priest within the order who has been helping Heather and Douglas get revenge on Claudia, is currently in Heather's room having a discussion with Claudia about possibly getting her life together and buying a pair of fucking shoes. Claudia leaves before Heather returns and Vincent greets her, telling her that Douglas left a message for her that the church is on the other side of the lake, and that if those kids walk on my lawn again, I'll break their fucking leg. I don't know why I did this to Douglas, but it's too late to stop now.
He also informs Heather that Claudia is in the church and she must pass through the lakeside amusement park to get there. Remembering her dream, the roller coaster accident, and how easy things were before Elon Musk owned Twitter, she navigates around the tracks and avoids the cars running her down. Elsewhere in the park, Claudia is throwing soup at Douglas and screaming about stopping oil, which isn't garlic, carrots, chicken, olive oil. Oil is a common ingredient in most soups. So what the fuck is this about? I swear kids are so fucking stupid. Douglas then pulls his gun on Claudia before we return to Heather, left to wonder if Douglas finally ended Claudia with a clever one-liner before walking away. Nope, he broke his leg. The game wants you to think it was Claudia's power of telekinesis, but really, I'm sure Douglas just lost his footing and, fell backwards. Because let's be honest, Claudia isn't going to use telekinesis to snap a guy's leg and call it a day. After a brief conversation, Heather pieces out and continues towards the church to face Claudia. On her way, she encounters her doppelganger on a carousel before asking her where she bought her coat and talking about a cute guy at school they both like.
I'm sorry, but I hadn't been given much opportunity to pick on her age up to this point.
Moving on, Heather reaches the church, eventually bumping into Vincent in the library, inquiring about the seal of Metatron. Heather reveals that she acquired it from Leonard, and Vincent is relieved, stating that it can stop Claudia. After finally catching up to Claudia to confront her, Vincent exclaims that meat is a natural part of the human diet, and Claudia launches back about how animals aren't food or something. Honestly, I gave up halfway through if you couldn't tell. She stabs Vincent, a couple of times I might add, before he succumbs to his injuries. For context purposes, Heather, but also Cheryl, but really Alessa, still has a living god within her, and her rage helps fuel the god, giving it life. Heather attempts to use the seal of Metatron, but Claudia reveals it's nothing more than a talisman. Before Heather finds the capsule of Agliophone. Shit, did she even know what that fucking was before she swallowed it? As her body begins to exorcise the god. How did that not get stuck in her esophagus on the way up? Claudia, not having a meal in days, decides not to waste an opportunity and munches down on the little bastard before escaping through a hole in the floor, Heather in pursuit behind her. Heather finds Claudia dead, with the god having been birthed by Claudia. Heather is left to fight the monster. Depending on your number of playthroughs and actions within the game, you will get one of 3 endings. Significantly smaller in comparison to Silent Hill 2, but still well worth the replays. I won't spoil them for you, but if you are interested in the game's details, mechanics, and lore, I would still implore you to watch Nitro Rad and Grand Gaming Channel, who do a wonderful job covering the entire series. That's it for this one, but if you enjoyed, feel free to subscribe for Silent Hill 4, the last game Team Silent will be involved with before we move on to Western developers. Comment and let me know what you think. Like and share to give this video some exposure, and I'll see you back here for The Room.